You know, after 40 years on this bench, I thought I'd seen every possible situation a human being could face. But on a cold Tuesday morning in February, a man walked into my courtroom who stopped me in my tracks. What he told me, why he was standing before me that day, it shook me to my core. And when I made my decision, when I looked into his eyes and told him what I was going to do, I saw something that reminded me exactly why I became a judge in the first place. Let me tell you this story, because it's about more than just traffic violations. It's about survival, dignity, and what justice really means when you're dealing with someone who's fighting just to stay alive. But before I tell you this whole story, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because what I'm about to share with you is something that needs to be heard. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single word of this. I've been a municipal court judge in Providence, Rhode Island for 4 decades now. Every single morning I wake up at 5:30. I've been doing it so long that I don't even need an alarm anymore. My eyes just open at 5:30 on the dot. My wife, Joyce, rolls over, still half asleep, and she mumbles the same thing she's mumbled for 48 years. Be kind today, Frank. She doesn't even remember saying it most mornings, but I remember. I carry those words with me every single day. I get to the courthouse at 8:15. The parking lot is usually empty except for a few cars. Christina, my court clerk, she's always there before me. She's been with me for 16 years now. She knows exactly how I like my coffee. Strong, black, hot enough that I have to blow on it for a good minute before I can take that first sip. She sets it on my desk without saying a word, just gives me this little nod, and I know we're ready for another day. My father came to this country from Italy in 1923. He was 17 years old. He had $12 in his pocket and couldn't speak a word of English. He worked construction, saved every penny, and eventually opened a small grocery store. Every morning before school, he'd wake me up and we'd walk to that store together in the dark. He'd put his hand on my shoulder and say, "Francesco, remember this. It doesn't matter where you come from or how much money you have. What matters is your character. What matters is how you treat people when nobody's watching." I was 8 years old the first time he told me that. I'm 76 now, and I still hear his voice every single morning. That particular Tuesday morning, it was February 14th, Valentine's Day. I remember because Christina had put these little heart-shaped candies on my desk as a joke. She does it every year. I was going through my morning case files, just routine stuff mostly. Traffic violations, parking tickets, the usual Tuesday morning in municipal court. I had my reading glasses on, sipping that hot coffee, making notes about the cases I was about to hear. Something felt different that morning, though. I can't explain it. After 40 years, you develop this sixth sense about certain days. You can feel when something unusual is coming. The air feels heavier somehow. I looked up at Christina and I said, "What do we have today?" She handed me the stack of files and said, "Pretty standard, Your Honor, except there's one case, 4th on the docket. You might want to read that one carefully." I pulled out the 4th file. The name on it read Robert Chen, age 52. The charge was driving with a suspended license. 3rd offense. Now normally that's serious. 3 strikes, you're creating a pattern. The law says I have to consider jail time for repeat offenders. I could see handwritten notes stapled to the file from the arresting officer. The note said, "Mr. Chen was cooperative, polite, appeared to be in poor health." That last part caught my attention. Appeared to be in poor health. I circled it with my pen. At 9 o'clock sharp, I put on my robe. It's the same robe I've worn for years. The fabric is worn at the elbows. There's a small coffee stain on the left side that never quite came out from 2009. But it's my robe. When I put it on, I'm reminded of the responsibility I carry. I'm not just Frank Caprio anymore. I'm Judge Caprio. I represent the law, fairness, justice. My father's words echo louder when I'm wearing this robe. I walked into the courtroom at 9:05. Everyone stood up like they always do. I always feel a little uncomfortable with that part, to be honest with you. I'm just a guy from Providence whose dad sold vegetables. But I understand it's not about me personally. It's about respecting the institution, respecting the law itself. I sat down, picked up my gavel, and said what I say every morning. Good morning, everyone. Please be seated. Let's proceed with respect and dignity today. The first case was a parking ticket. The woman had parked in a handicapped spot without a permit. She was very apologetic, explained she was only there for 2 minutes to pick up her elderly mother. I could see she was genuinely sorry. I reduced the fine, reminded her why those spots are sacred, and she thanked me with tears in her eyes. That's the thing people don't always understand about this job. Every case is a human being. Every file is someone's real life. The second case was a kid, 19 years old, caught speeding, 45 in a 25. He was rushing to see his girlfriend, trying to be cool. I looked at him and I said, "Son, you know what's not cool? Hitting someone's child who's crossing the street because you're going 20 miles over the limit." He went pale. I saw it hit him. Sometimes young people just need someone to paint the picture they're not seeing. I gave him community service and a defensive driving course. His mother, sitting in the gallery, mouthed, "Thank you" to me. I nodded at her. The third case was just wrapping up when Christina called out, "Case number 4, Robert Chin, driving with suspended license, third offense." I looked up toward the back of the courtroom. I saw a man stand up slowly from the bench, very slowly. He was using a cane, and even with the cane, I could see he was struggling. He was thin, much thinner than a man his age should be. His clothes hung on him like they were 2 sizes too big. His face had that gray color I've seen before on people who are seriously ill. My stomach tightened immediately. He made his way down the aisle toward my bench. Every step looked painful. I watched him carefully. His breathing was labored even though he was just walking. When he finally reached the defendant's table, he gripped the edge of it with both hands, steadying himself. His hands were shaking slightly. I could see an IV bruise on his left hand, the kind you get from repeated needle sticks. I looked down at his file again. Third offense. The law was pretty clear about what I was supposed to do, but I looked back up at this man, at Robert Chen, and something in my gut told me there was more to this story. There had to be. "Mr. Chen," I said, keeping my voice gentle, "I see here you've been charged with driving on a suspended license, third time. Can you explain to me what happened?" He cleared his throat. His voice came out quiet, raspy. "Yes, Your Honor. I was driving to my dialysis appointment." I leaned forward. "Dialysis appointment?" "Yes, sir. I have kidney failure. Stage 5. I need dialysis 3 times a week or I'll die. The treatments are at Rhode Island Hospital. It's the only facility that accepts my insurance." I felt something twist in my chest. I took off my reading glasses and looked at him directly. "Mr. Chen, help me understand. Why were you driving on a suspended license? Why is your license suspended?" He looked down at his hands. I could see shame wash over his face. "Your Honor, I lost my job 2 years ago. I was a chemistry teacher at Central High School for 23 years. When I got sick, I had to take medical leave. They replaced me. I couldn't afford my car insurance anymore. I couldn't afford a lot of things anymore. When my insurance lapsed, my license was suspended. I know it was wrong to keep driving. I know that. So you kept driving anyway," I said, not accusatory, just stating the fact. "Yes, sir, I had to. Your Honor, I need those treatments 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every week. If I miss even one treatment, the toxins build up in my blood. I could have a heart attack, a stroke, I could go into a coma. My daughter, she works 2 jobs. She tries to take me when she can, but she can't always get off work. There's no bus route that goes directly to the hospital from where I live. It would take 3 transfers and 2 hours each way. After dialysis, I'm so weak I can barely stand. I can't do a 4-hour round trip on public buses, Your Honor. I just can't." I sat back in my chair. I looked at this man, really looked at him. Here was someone making an impossible choice every single week. Break the law or die. Those were his options. Drive illegally or don't get the medical treatment keeping him alive. "How long does each treatment take?" I asked him. 4 hours, Your Honor. I sit in a chair for 4 hours while my blood is filtered through a machine. 3 times a week, 12 hours a week hooked to a machine just to stay alive. I could hear the exhaustion in his voice, not just physical exhaustion, soul exhaustion, the kind that comes from fighting a battle you know you might not win. "Mr. Chen," I said quietly, "I need you to understand something. What you did was against the law. You drove 3 times on a suspended license. You put yourself and others at risk on the road. I can't ignore that. I have a responsibility to public safety." I saw his shoulders slump. He nodded slowly. "I understand, Your Honor. I know I broke the law. I'm prepared to accept whatever punishment you decide." "But," I continued, and I saw him look up at me, "I also need to consider the circumstances. I need to understand why someone would repeatedly break the law. And what you're telling me is that you were choosing between following the law and staying alive." "Yes, sir," he whispered. "That's exactly it. Now let me pause here for just a second. I need to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where every choice you had was a bad one? Where you had to pick between 2 terrible options and just hope you survived? Leave me a comment because I actually read them. And if you're following this story, if you want to know what I decided to do, hit that like button for me. I looked at Christina. She was looking at me with this expression I'd seen before. She knew what I was thinking. After 16 years together, she can read my mind. She gave me the smallest nod. I looked back at Mr. Chen. "How did you get pulled over this time?" I asked. "I was driving 5 miles under the speed limit in the right lane. Being very careful, Your Honor, but my registration had expired too. I couldn't afford to renew it. The officer ran my plates at a red light and pulled me over. I didn't argue. I didn't make excuses. I just handed him my documents and told him the truth." I looked at the officer's notes again. "Officer Ramirez writes here that you were extremely cooperative and respectful. He also notes that you appeared to be in medical distress. Is that accurate?" I had just finished dialysis an hour before. I was trying to drive home. After treatment, I get very tired, very weak. Sometimes I get dizzy, but I drive very slowly, very carefully. I pull over if I feel too dizzy. My God, this man was driving while barely able to function, not because he was reckless, but because he had no other choice. I thought about my own father, working himself to exhaustion to provide for us. I thought about what a man will do to survive, to keep going, when the system offers him no other options. "Mr. Chen, do you have family besides your daughter?" His face changed, softened. "I have 2 daughters, Your Honor. Rachel is 28. She's the one who works 2 jobs to help me. She's a waitress during the day, and she cleans offices at night. My younger daughter, Michelle, she's 24. She's in nursing school. She wants to be a dialysis nurse because of me. She says if she'd known more about kidney disease earlier, maybe she could have helped me prevent this." I felt a lump in my throat. "What about your wife?" He was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice cracked. "My wife passed away 4 years ago, cancer. That's when my kidneys started failing, actually. The doctor said the stress triggered the decline. She was my everything, Your Honor. 30 years married. After she died, everything fell apart. I couldn't teach anymore, couldn't concentrate. The grief was too much. Then I got sick, lost my job, lost my insurance, lost everything. I had to look away for a moment. I picked up my water glass and took a sip just to give myself a second. This wasn't just a traffic case anymore. This was a man who'd lost everything and was fighting with everything he had left just to survive another day. Your Honor, he said, and his voice was stronger now. I want you to know something. I'm not making excuses. I know I broke the law. I know there are rules for a reason. If you need to punish me, I understand. But I need you to know that I'm on a transplant list. I've been waiting for 2 years for a kidney. If I can just hold on, if I can just keep getting to those treatments until a kidney becomes available, I might have a chance at a normal life again. I might be able to see my daughter Michelle graduate from nursing school. I might be able to walk Rachel down the aisle someday. That's what I'm fighting for. That's why I kept driving." The courtroom was completely silent. I could hear the clock on the wall ticking. I looked out at the gallery. There were maybe 20 people sitting there, waiting for their own cases. Every single one of them was staring at Robert Chen. Some had tears in their eyes. I looked down at my father's old watch on my wrist. He gave it to me when I became a judge. It doesn't keep perfect time anymore, runs about 2 minutes slow, but I've never fixed it. I like that it's imperfect. It reminds me that justice shouldn't be mechanical and precise like a perfect watch. It should be human. It should consider the person standing before you, not just the violation they committed. Mr. Chen, I said, I'm going to ask you some practical questions now. How far is the hospital from your home? 11 miles, Your Honor. And you said there's no direct bus route? No, sir. I've checked. Many times. I would need to take 3 different buses. The first bus stop is 8 blocks from my apartment. After dialysis, Your Honor, I can barely walk from the treatment chair to the waiting room. 8 blocks would be impossible. What about medical transport services? Has the hospital offered any assistance? I've asked, Your Honor. There's a waiting list for medical transport that's 6 months long, and it only operates during certain hours. My dialysis slot is 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. The transport service can't guarantee they'd get me there on time. If I'm late for dialysis, I lose my slot. It could be weeks before they can fit me in again. I was getting angry now, not at him, at a system that puts a man in this position, at a society that forces someone to choose between following traffic laws and staying alive. What about rideshare services? Uber, Lyft? He looked embarrassed. Your Honor, I've tried. Each ride would be about $20 each way, $40 per trip. 3 times a week. That's $480 a month just for rides. I'm on disability. I get $840 a month. After rent, I have $300 left for everything else. Food, medicine, utilities. I can't afford $480 for rides. I did the math in my head. This man had to survive on less than $400 a month after paying rent. Meanwhile, he needed expensive medical treatment 3 times a week just to stay alive. What about your daughters? You said Rachel works 2 jobs? Your Honor, Rachel is already helping me with rent. She pays half my rent every month. That's $500 from her. She's barely keeping her own head above water. I can't ask her for more. I won't. Michelle is in school full-time and working weekends at the hospital as a nurse's aide. She gives me what she can, but it's not much. They're good girls. They're doing everything they can. This isn't on them. I looked at the prosecutor. Young guy, maybe 30. He'd been silent this whole time, just listening. I said, Counselor, what's the state's position here? He stood up slowly. I could see he was struggling with this too. Your Honor, the state recognizes this is an unusual circumstance. Mr. Chen has 3 violations over the past year. Technically, the sentencing guidelines suggest jail time or substantial fines. However, given the medical circumstances, the state would defer to the court's judgment. That was code for, I don't want to be the one to put this dying man in jail, so you decide. I looked back at Mr. Chen. When was the last time you had a valid driver's license? It expired 14 months ago, Your Honor. I couldn't afford the insurance to keep it valid. Do you know how much it would cost to get your license reinstated? I'd need to pay the previous fines, reinstate my registration, and get insurance. Total would be about $1,200, Your Honor. I don't have $1,200. I don't have $100. $1,200. That was probably more money than this man had seen at one time in 2 years. For him, it might as well have been $12 million. I'm going to be honest with you. At this point, I was struggling with what to do. The law told me one thing. My conscience told me something else. If you've ever been in a position where doing the right thing meant bending the rules, you know exactly what I was feeling. Hit that like button if you're still with me, and make sure you're subscribed, because what I decided to do next, it went against everything I was technically supposed to do. I took a deep breath. I looked at Mr. Chen standing there, gripping that table, his whole body trembling with exhaustion. I thought about my father, working through illness because he had no choice. I thought about my wife's words that morning. Be kind today, Frank. Mr. Chen, I said, here's what's going to happen. First, I'm dismissing these charges, all of them. I heard a gasp from the gallery. Mr. Chen's eyes went wide. Your Honor, I said I'm dismissing them. You're not paying a fine. You're not going to jail. These charges are dismissed. But, Your Honor, I don't understand. I broke the law. You did, and normally I would have no choice but to punish that. But, Mr. Chen, I'm not going to punish a man for trying to stay alive. I'm not going to find someone who's choosing between food and medicine. That's not justice. That's cruelty. I saw tears start running down his face. His whole body started shaking, and I realized he was crying. Not just crying, sobbing. All the stress, all the fear, all the months of impossible choices, it all came pouring out. However, I continued, and I waited for him to look up at me. We need to solve this problem. You can't keep driving on a suspended license. Next time, you might get a judge who doesn't care about your circumstances. Next time, you could go to jail. Or worse, you could hurt someone or yourself on the road. We need a real solution. He wiped his eyes with a shaking hand. I don't know what to do, Your Honor. Christina, I called out. My clerk stood up immediately. Contact Rhode Island Hospital's patient services. Tell them we have a dialysis patient who needs guaranteed medical transport 3 times a week. Tell them Judge Caprio personally requests they expedite his case. Christina was already writing notes. Yes, Your Honor. Also contact the DMV. Find out exactly what Mr. Chen needs to do to get his license reinstated. Get me a total cost breakdown. Right away, Your Honor. I looked at Mr. Chen. I can't personally pay for your license reinstatement. That would be inappropriate, and it wouldn't be fair to others in similar situations, but I can connect you with resources. Your Honor, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, but I need you to promise me something. Promise me you won't drive until your license is valid again. Can you do that? But, Your Honor, my next dialysis is in 2 days. How will I? We're going to figure that out right now. Christina, who do we know at the hospital? Christina thought for a moment. Dr. Patricia Morrison. She's the head of nephrology. We had her son in court last year for that skateboarding ticket. You let him off with community service. I smiled. Call her right now. Tell her I need to speak with her about a patient transport emergency. Christina stepped out of the courtroom. The room was still completely silent. Everyone was watching this unfold. I looked at Mr. Chen. How did you get here today to court? I drove, Your Honor. I know I shouldn't have, but where's your car now? In the parking lot outside. Okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave your car keys with Christina. Your car stays here. I'm going to have someone from my staff drive you home today, and we're going to figure out transportation for your dialysis appointment on Friday. Your Honor, I can't ask you to do this. You're not asking. I'm telling you. This is what's happening. Before I tell you what happened next, let me ask you this. Do you think the law should always be applied exactly the same way, no matter what? Or should judges have the wisdom to consider circumstances? Should justice be blind, or should it have eyes to see suffering? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you believe compassion has a place in the courtroom, hit that subscribe button. Christina came back into the courtroom. She walked up to the bench and whispered to me, Dr. Morrison is on the phone. She says she remembers you. She wants to help. I stood up. Everyone, I need to take a brief recess. 15 minutes. Mr. Chen, please sit down and rest. I went back into my chambers and picked up the phone. Dr. Morrison, Judge Caprio, Christina told me about your patient. Robert Chen, right? Yes. He's been driving on a suspended license to get to dialysis because he has no other way to get there. I just dismissed his charges, but we need a real solution. Judge, I'm looking at his file right now. Robert is one of our patients. He's actually been incredibly compliant with his treatment schedule, considering his circumstances. Never missed an appointment in 2 years. I had no idea he was driving illegally to get here. Can you help him? Absolutely. I'm going to put him on priority medical transport immediately. He'll have a ride to and from every dialysis appointment starting this week. I'm also going to connect him with our social worker. We have emergency funds for patients in situations like this. It won't solve everything, but it might help with some of his immediate needs. I felt relief wash over me. Thank you, Dr. Morrison. Thank you, Judge, for caring enough to call. Most judges would have just thrown the book at him. I hung up and sat at my desk for a moment. I looked at the picture I keep on my desk. It's my father, standing in front of his grocery store in 1965. He's smiling, wearing his work apron, his arm around my shoulder. I was 16 in that picture. He died 2 years later. Heart attack at work. He was only 53. I thought about what he would do in this situation. I knew the answer immediately. He would help. He always helped. He gave groceries on credit to families who couldn't pay. He hired immigrants who spoke no English. He let neighborhood kids eat fruit from the store when they were hungry. He'd say, "Francesco, rules are important, but people are more important." I walked back into the courtroom. Everyone stood. I sat down and motioned for them to sit. "Mr. Chen, please stand." He struggled to his feet, gripping the table again. "I just spoke with Dr. Morrison at Rhode Island Hospital. Starting this Friday, you will have guaranteed medical transport to and from every dialysis appointment. It's arranged. You don't need to worry about it anymore." His legs actually buckled. He caught himself on the table. "Your Honor, I can't. Additionally, the hospital's social worker will be contacting you about emergency assistance funds. They're going to help you with some immediate expenses." He was crying again, openly sobbing now. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know me." I looked at him for a long moment. "Mr. Chen, I've been on this bench for 40 years. I've seen thousands of people come through that door. Some are reckless, some are careless, some just don't care about the rules. But you're none of those things. You're a man who taught children chemistry for 23 years. You're a father raising 2 daughters who are clearly good people because they learned from a good man. You're someone fighting to survive against impossible odds. You didn't break the law because you don't respect it. You broke it because following it meant giving up on life. I'm not going to punish survival. I promise you, Your Honor, I'll never drive without a license again. I promise. I know you won't because you won't have to. As for your license reinstatement, Christina has information on organizations that help people in your situation. It might take time, but we're going to help you navigate it." I don't know how to thank you. You thank me by keeping those dialysis appointments. You thank me by staying alive. You thank me by seeing your daughter graduate from nursing school and walking Rachel down the aisle someday. That's how you thank me. The courtroom erupted in applause. I didn't try to stop it. I just sat there and let it happen. Mr. Chen stood there crying, and people in the gallery were crying. And honestly, I was fighting back tears myself. When the applause finally died down, I said, "Case dismissed. You're free to go, Mr. Chen. Christina will take care of the details. And Mr. Chen, good luck. I mean that." "Thank you, Your Honor. God bless you. Thank you." He turned to walk away and nearly fell. A man from the gallery immediately jumped up and helped him. I later found out that man was a social worker who'd been in court for his own traffic ticket. He gave Mr. Chen his business card and ended up helping him apply for additional state assistance. You know what keeps me doing this job after 40 years? Moments like these. Seeing that sometimes, just sometimes, the system can work the way it's supposed to. When we remember we're dealing with human beings, not just case numbers. If this story is restoring your faith in justice, show me by hitting that subscribe button and that like button. Share this with someone who needs to see it. I took a quick break after Mr. Chen's case. I needed to collect myself. I went to my chambers and just sat there for 10 minutes, staring at nothing. Christina brought me a fresh coffee. She didn't say anything, just squeezed my shoulder and left. The rest of that morning was standard cases, nothing remarkable, but I couldn't stop thinking about Robert Chen. I kept wondering how many other people were out there, trapped in impossible situations, forced to choose between following the law and surviving. How many people had I sentenced over the years without understanding their full story? Around noon, Christina knocked on my door. "Your Honor, there's someone here to see you. She says it's about Mr. Chen's case." A young woman walked in. She was in her 20s, wearing scrubs with cartoon characters on them. She had Robert Chen's eyes. Judge Caprio, I'm Rachel Chen, Robert's daughter. I stood up immediately. Please sit down. Is your father okay? He's fine. He's home resting. Judge, I had to come here. I had to thank you in person. She was crying before she even sat down. I've been watching my dad slowly give up for 2 years. Every day he looks a little more tired, a little more defeated. Today, when he called me and told me what you did, I heard something in his voice I haven't heard in so long. Hope. You gave him hope. I came around my desk and handed her a tissue. Your father is a good man facing an impossible situation. I just did what anyone should do. No, she said firmly. Most people don't do what you did. Most people follow the rules and don't look at the person standing in front of them. You saw my dad. You really saw him. Tell me about him, I said, before he got sick. Her face lit up. He was the best dad. When I was little, he'd do chemistry experiments in our kitchen. We'd make volcanoes with baking soda and vinegar. He'd explain why things reacted the way they did. He made science magical. His students loved him. Every year at Christmas, we'd get cards from former students telling him how he inspired them to become doctors, engineers, scientists. He has a whole box of those cards at home. He mentioned your mother passed away. The light dimmed from her face. 4 years ago, ovarian cancer. Dad was her primary caregiver. He took a leave of absence from teaching to take care of her. He was with her every single day until the end. After she died, he went back to teaching, but he was different, sad. Then he started getting sick. The doctor said the stress had damaged his kidneys. By the time they caught it, he was already in stage 4 kidney failure. It progressed to stage 5 within months. I'm so sorry. The worst part is watching him try so hard to not be a burden. He refuses to ask for help. When I found out he'd been driving illegally to dialysis, I was so scared and so angry. But what was I supposed to do? I can't always take him. I work doubles most days just to help him with rent. My sister is in school. We're doing everything we can, but it's not enough. It is enough, I told her. You're keeping him going. You're giving him reasons to fight. That's everything. Judge Caprio, can I tell you something? Last week, Dad said something that scared me. He said maybe he should just stop going to dialysis. Just let nature take its course. He said he was tired of being such a burden, tired of struggling. I begged him not to give up, but I could see he was serious. He was giving up. My heart broke, but he went to his appointment. Because he's stubborn, because some tiny part of him still wants to live. But Judge, today you gave him something more important than transportation. You gave him dignity. You treated him like a person who matters. Do you know how long it's been since someone in authority treated him like he matters? I didn't know what to say. I just reached across and squeezed her hand. He's on the transplant list, she continued. We're all getting tested to see if one of us can be a living donor. I'm not a match, but Michelle might be. We're waiting on her results. If she's a match, she said she'll donate one of her kidneys to Dad. Can you imagine? My baby sister wants to give part of her body to save our father. That's love, I said simply. That's what families do. But Judge, he has to stay alive long enough for that transplant. Whether it's from Michelle or from a deceased donor, he has to hold on. What you did today, making sure he can get to treatment safely and reliably, you might have just saved his life. I hope so, I really do. She stood up to leave. I won't take up any more of your time. I just needed to look you in the eye and say thank you. From our whole family, thank you. After she left, I sat at my desk for a long time. I thought about the power we hold as judges. Every decision we make ripples out into people's lives in ways we might never see. I could have sentenced Robert Chen to jail time. I could have fined him money he didn't have. I could have suspended his non-existent driving privileges further. Any of those decisions would have been legally defensible, by the book. But they would have been wrong, dead wrong. So let me ask you this. Do you think I was too soft on him? Should I have enforced the law regardless of circumstances? I'm genuinely curious what you think, and here's another question for you. If you were in my position, what would you have done? Would compassion have won over strict enforcement of the law? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I actually read them, every single one. 2 weeks later, I got a letter at the courthouse. It was addressed to me in shaky handwriting. I opened it and immediately recognized the signature, Robert Chen. Dear Judge Caprio, it read, I'm writing this after my dialysis treatment today. For the first time in 2 years, I didn't have to worry about how I would get here or how I would get home. The medical transport was on time, comfortable, and the driver was kind. I sat in that chair for 4 hours today, and instead of feeling anxious and guilty like I usually do, I felt grateful. Grateful to be alive. Grateful for good daughters. Grateful for second chances. Grateful for you. You asked me in court to promise I would keep fighting, that I would stay alive to see my daughter's futures. I'm here to tell you I'm keeping that promise. Michelle got her test results back. She's a perfect match. In 3 months, she's going to donate one of her kidneys to me. My baby girl is giving me a piece of herself so I can live. I can't stop crying every time I think about it. The hospital social worker connected me with a fund that's going to help me get my license reinstated. In a few months, I'll be legal to drive again. And once I have my transplant, once I'm healthy again, I'm going back to teaching. There's a charter school in Providence that's already said they'd hire me part-time to tutor chemistry students. I'm going to teach again, Judge. I'm going to do what I love again. I don't know if you understand what you gave me that day in your courtroom. It wasn't just dismissed charges or transportation help. You gave me my dignity back. You treated me like I was worth saving. I'll never forget that. Neither will my daughters. Thank you for seeing me. Not my violations, not my problems, but me. The person, the father, the teacher, the man who's fighting to survive. You saw me and you decided I was worth helping. I promise I'll make that faith worthwhile. With deepest gratitude, Robert Chen. I read that letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer where I keep the letters and cards that mean the most to me. That drawer is pretty full after 40 years. 3 months later, I got another letter. This one was typed. Dear Judge Caprio, I wanted to let you know that my surgery was successful. Michelle donated her kidney to me on April 15th. The transplant went perfectly. For the first time in 3 years, I woke up without feeling poisoned by my own body. The doctors say I'm recovering better than expected. Michelle is recovering well too, already back to her nursing classes. I'm writing this from my apartment. I'm looking out the window at the street below. In a few weeks, once I'm cleared by my doctors, I'm going to walk down those stairs without a cane. I'm going to get in my car, legally licensed and insured, and I'm going to drive to the charter school for my first day back teaching. My older daughter Rachel came over yesterday and cried happy tears. She said I look like my old self again. She said she has her dad back. I didn't realize how much I'd lost until I started getting it back. Judge, I know you probably don't remember every person who comes through your courtroom, but I want you to know that what you did that February morning changed the trajectory of my entire life. You saved me, not just from legal punishment, but from giving up entirely. You reminded me that there are still good people in this world who care about doing the right thing, even when it's not easy. If you ever doubt whether your work matters, please remember me. Remember that one decision, made with compassion instead of just legal obligation, can save someone's entire life. You saved mine. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve it. Forever grateful, Robert Chen, chemistry teacher. I sat at my desk with that letter in my hands and I cried. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I cried like a baby. After 40 years of trying to do the right thing, trying to balance the law with humanity, here was proof that sometimes it actually works. Sometimes compassion wins. Sometimes mercy is the right answer. I called Christina into my office. I showed her the letter. She read it and started crying too. This is why we do this, she said. This right here. Yes, it is, I agreed. That evening I went home and told Joyce about the letters. She listened quietly, holding my hand. When I finished, she said the same thing she said for 48 years. "You were kind today, Frank." "I tried to be," I said. "You succeeded." 6 months after that, I got an invitation in the mail. It was to a graduation ceremony at Rhode Island College of Nursing. There was a handwritten note attached. "Judge Caprio, my sister Michelle is graduating. Dad and I would be honored if you would attend. You're part of our family's miracle. Please come. Rachel Chen." I went. I sat in the back of the auditorium with Joyce. When they called Michelle Chen's name, I watched a beautiful young woman walk across that stage to receive her nursing degree. Robert Chen was sitting in the front row, standing and cheering louder than anyone. He looked healthy, strong, alive. After the ceremony, he found me. He hugged me, this man I'd met just once in my courtroom. He hugged me like I was family. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." "Thank you for keeping your promise," I said, "for staying alive." "Always," he said. "I'm not going anywhere." Michelle came over, still in her cap and gown. "You're Judge Caprio? My dad talks about you all the time. Thank you for helping him when he needed it most." "Your father helped himself," I told her. "He fought. He survived. He had daughters worth living for. I just removed one obstacle." "You removed the obstacle that would have killed him," she said firmly. "Don't minimize what you did." Robert introduced me to other family members, friends, fellow teachers who'd come to support Michelle. Each person already knew the story. He'd told everyone about the judge who showed him mercy when he was out of options. As Joyce and I were leaving, Robert caught up with us one more time. "Judge, I'm teaching again, 4 days a week at the charter school. I have 17 students in my chemistry class. Yesterday, one of them asked me what made me want to become a teacher. You know what I told him?" "What?" "I told him about you. I told him that I wanted to be for my students what you were for me. Someone who sees potential instead of problems. Someone who helps instead of punishes when help is what's needed. I told him that's what real teachers do. That's what real leaders do." I couldn't speak. I just shook his hand and nodded. In the car on the way home, Joyce said, 40 years, and you're still changing lives. "One at a time," I said. "That's all we can do, one person at a time." I think about Robert Chen often. I think about how close he came to giving up, how one decision made in one courtroom on one Tuesday morning in February rippled out into so many lives. Rachel kept her father. Michelle gave her father a kidney and got to have him at her graduation. 17 high school students have a teacher who inspires them because he's alive to teach them. All because I decided that compassion mattered more than strict enforcement that day. All because I looked at a man and saw a human being instead of just a violation. My father was right. What matters is character. What matters is how you treat people when you have power over them. Do you use that power to crush or to help? Do you hide behind rules, or do you remember that rules were made to serve people, not the other way around? I've made thousands of decisions from that bench. Some were easy, some were hard, some I'm proud of, some I wish I could take back. But the Robert Chen decision, that one I know in my bones was right. Not legally complicated, not technically brilliant, just right, morally right, human right. And here's what I've learned after 40 years doing this work. The law is important. Rules matter. Order matters. But none of it means anything if we forget why we have laws in the first place. We have them to protect people, to help society function, to create fairness. When following the law creates profound unfairness, when it punishes survival, when it kicks someone who's already down, then strict enforcement isn't justice. It's cruelty wearing a judge's robe. Real justice requires wisdom. It requires seeing the full picture. It requires asking not just, what does the law say, but what does humanity require? It requires the courage to choose mercy when mercy is right, even if technically you could choose punishment. Robert Chen didn't need punishment. He needed help. And thank God I had the wisdom that day to see the difference. If this story meant something to you, if you believe in justice tempered with mercy, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Turn on that bell icon so you never miss another story from my courtroom. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, someone who's facing impossible choices, someone who needs to know that sometimes the system works, sometimes there are people in power who still remember that laws serve people, not the other way around. And check out the next video on your screen. I've got another incredible story from my courtroom that you won't believe, about a woman who taught me something about courage I'll never forget. I'll see you there. I'm Frank Caprio. I've been on this bench for 40 years because I believe something simple. Justice without mercy isn't justice at all. It's just punishment. And punishment alone never healed anyone, never helped anyone, never made society better. What makes society better is when we see each other, really see each other, not as case numbers or violations or problems to be solved, but as human beings doing our best with the cards we've been dealt. Robert Chen was dealt a terrible hand, kidney failure, lost his wife, lost his job, lost everything. But he kept fighting. He kept showing up to those treatments. He kept choosing life even when life was brutally hard. The least I could do was help him keep fighting. That's not being soft on crime. That's not being a bleeding heart. That's being human. That's remembering that the person standing in front of you has a story, has a family, has worth. Thank you for listening to my story. God bless you. And remember, respect costs nothing, but it's worth everything. Compassion costs nothing, but it saves lives. Mercy costs nothing, but it changes the world, one person at a time. That's what I believe. That's what I've tried to practice for 40 years. And on that Tuesday morning in February, when Robert Chen stood before me, when I looked into his tired eyes and saw a man fighting to survive, I'm grateful I remembered those lessons. I'm grateful I chose compassion, because that choice gave a father back to his daughters. It gave students back their teacher. It gave a dying man hope to keep living. And honestly, that choice saved something in me too. It reminded me why I do this work, why I put on this robe every morning, why I still care after all these years. Because every once in a while, we get the chance to make a real difference in someone's life, to be the person who helps instead of hurts, to be the one who sees potential instead of just problems. Robert Chen gave me that chance, and I'll be grateful for it until my last day on this bench. Thank you for watching, thank you for caring, and thank you for believing, like I do, that the world can still be a place where compassion wins, where justice and mercy walk hand in hand, where rules serve people, and where a man fighting to stay alive doesn't have to choose between following the law and living to see another day. God bless you all.